This is Paul Sheehan, your host. I want to welcome you to another episode of Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century. Today, sitting next to me is a familiar face, David Tamayo, who is one of the heads of American Hispanic Freethinkers?
Hispanic American Freethinkers, almost.
Okay, well, you see,
I'm going to have to invite you to drink more wine every once in a while to get you.
The problem is that I don't speak English, I speak American. You got to learn to speak my language, man.
Okay.
This is America. ¿Qué pasa? So today we have a great guest that's coming on, and David will be talking about him in a moment. But what we want to do is give you our announcements in the news. And as always, I want to remind viewers that we are always trying to raise funds here on Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, so we can fly these guys out to places to do world-class interviews, have them attend events, et cetera, et cetera. And you know, we have a check that there we go. You can write to this address right here to Fairfax Public Access. This is a tax write-off. It's a 501c, so if you want to save yourself some tax money, you can do that.
And if you leave any part, that'll be fine, right? We fill in the blank?
Yes, leave the checks blank. We will fill in the dollar amounts for you. We know you have a lot of work to do. We will handle all the hard stuff ourselves. And we also want to take a moment and remind people that we have been nominated for Best Show of 2013 here at Fairfax Public Access. We reach a household of 250,000 households in the Northern Virginia area. We broadcast on three cable stations and via the web, live streaming. So this is your chance to go to this website here at Fairfax Public Access. You click on that little red box and it'll tell you how to vote for us and to ensure that we win.
Until when is that? When is the deadline for that?
That's till the end of this month.
Okay. So
yeah, so they got a limited amount of time to do it. We are not praying for a victory. We're working for it.
Exactly.
But as far as the announcements goes,
well,
I know
one more thing I want to mention on that is our Facebook page. Last week we mentioned that we wanted you to go and check the like, and guess what? We did it. We wanted to go over the 1,000, and now we're sitting at 1,099 or so. So thank you. Still get your friends and your friends' friends to go to Road to Reason in Facebook and like us in there, because that helps us also. It encourages us in getting the show out every week.
As I will say, we did it.
Yeah.
We're over 1,000. We're very proud of that. I also want to give a shout out to C.S. McKinney, who's been doing a lot of work on our show to promote it. You know, I think his efforts are paying off. All of our efforts are paying off. We're seeing the growth of the show, and that's a very exciting thing right now in this time and place. I know we said that Rick Wingrove was going to come on and give a report today. We simply ran out of time, but I'm going to ask him to put some stuff up on our Facebook page about his experiences at, was it CPAC?
Yes, the CPAC.
CPAC, where basically American Atheists was invited, then they were disinvited to that event. And apparently there was an outcry from not only just atheists, but a lot of theists that were not happy. There are theists out there that believe in free speech and equality and things of that nature.
And there's no reason why there are atheists that are, and non-believers that are also conservative. And this was good because we were reaching out to a lot of those to say, hey, here we are. We really have nothing to say when it comes to politics, when it comes to economy and things like that. Atheism just talks about one thing, but to let them know that we were here and that we accept everyone. Exactly.
No, I think that's wonderful. And so we're going to move on to the news. We talk about a few current events. Then we're going to have a brief video, as we normally do, from Liz Lydell with the Secular Student Alliance. But I want to talk about a case that I know that viewers have been following on this show regarding Scientology. There is a case that is still going on in Texas where they had stalked an ex-member and his wife. They literally showed up at their house with cameras, baited them to fight for like 190 days. They were like physically trying to provoke these people. They were sending things like rubber sex toys to his wife's work. They were showing up at the neighbors' houses, basically saying that your neighbor is a bigot, a hateful person. Well, Scientology's try to play both sides of this. They try to say, well, the courts have no jurisdiction over us. because we're a religion and this is an ex-member and therefore this is a religious dispute. Never mind the fact that we're committing actual crimes and things, we're doing this outside of a church, this is protected. But they really blew it when they also said the whole reason they were really harassing him was that he was teaching Scientology outside of the church and he was making a profit from it. They filed what was an anti-SLAPP motion, and basically, historically, anti-SLAPP motions are when a person sues, say, like a major corporation, and that corporation sicks like 20 lawyers on them, they can file an anti-SLAPP motion. Basically, they can say, I'm a victim here, I'm a little guy, I need an expedited legal proceedings because it's not reasonable that I could ever survive this onslaught from this big, powerful corporation. Scientology showed up in court with 19 lawyers, and they filed an anti-SLAPP motion against this woman and her husband, claiming that they were victims. And the judge... You
mean the judge saw through that?
The judge saw through that. But the beautiful part is he basically said, the moment you all say that there was a competition for sale of this material.
Profit.
It's profit. It's no longer a religious matter. It's a business matter, and this court has jurisdiction over it. And the best part of it is Scientology I believe, had gotten the Supreme Court Justice of Texas to resign from his position to join their legal team. And this judge quoted the Supreme Court Justice's previous decisions in his ruling. So it's like... It's not a good day for Scientology, to say the least.
So is this going to cost them a penny or two?
Well, they are required to pay for the legal fees in the anti-SLAPP session of this. I mean, there's a whole legal slew going forward. Yeah, now Scientology has filed this thing called a writ for mandamus, and there's a lot more legal elements and loopholes they have to go through. But for the anti-SLAPP motion, they have been found liable for all the legal fees, and so they are, which of course, as we know, they can drop a check. The type that we want here at Fairfax Public. You know what? Let's just write a check.
They get many of those compared to the very few we get of those here.
Absolutely. And I know you're going to cover a story about a religious figure being able to lose and gain money.
Money and religion, they go together like H and O go in water. So the news that I have in that respect is, I have a question for you first.
Okay.
Is someone that steals from a con man a criminal?
I really, my answer to that is personally, it depends on what they do with what they steal. What is their motivation? If they're a Robin Hood, I'd say no.
Yeah, so this is the thing. So about $600,000 in cash and checks that were stolen from Joel Osteen, that famous preacher. That's about the weekend. This is how much he takes on the weekend. And so it was the weekend of March the 8th and the 9th. Somebody broke in his safe and took about $200,000 in cash and about $400,000 in checks. And well, poor guy, $600,000 that he lost for one day, one day worth of work is really sad. So do you have something I can dry my tears with, please? Poor guy.
My underwear are clean. No, I'm just teasing with you, man.
Well, let me tell you, this fellow, we know that he doesn't live off, just this church appearance. I mean, he goes to speak at conferences. He writes books. He's got all kinds of sweet deals going on, and sells a lot of tapes and a lot of video and stuff like that to inspire people. So, but in my book, he's just no different than any other con man, just selling tickets to heaven. And so I don't know, if I would have been him, I would have been a little bit embarrassed to call the police and make a complaint, but I think he's hoping to get some of that money back, especially if they try to cash those checks.
Well, the thing I find interesting about that, David, is if it's everybody, this is big news. If somebody stole a weekend's income from me, the cops wouldn't even want to take a report, much less would it be newsworthy. Here's a con man, and the way it's sold to us is we're supposed to be upset.
Yeah.
We're supposed
feel sorry for him.
We're supposed to feel sorry for this guy. What a horrific tragedy that this was done to his multi-billion-dollar mega church. How could anybody do this? nobody asks where that money goes. I know where it goes. It goes to the constant maintenance of that plastic surgery smile that this guy walks around.
Well, like his jets and
with his jets,
yeah,
it's absolutely asinine that we're supposed to really care.
I mean,
about
he's
this.
creating jobs. Those mechanics for those jets. It's creating jobs, I'm sure.
Yeah. Sorry.
So, do you have another piece of news?
Well, Dave, I think that what we're finding is less and less all the time. People really seem to care about people like Joel and religion in general. And there's a report that just came out about a poll that was done by NBC and the Wall Street Journal, where they basically said that the poll has found that 21% of Americans feel religion is not important. And that's the highest percentage that this poll has ever found since it was started back. The survey was first conducted in 1997. And there's something that's very interesting. You would say, okay, well, who are the people that find religion the least important? Well, it's the people who are least needy, because the average income of these people was over $75,000. It was predominantly male, and it was the northeast to west, and they tended to be under 35.
Tends to be also the more educated parts of society.
Right, exactly, yeah. It's people who were educated. And the Harris poll last year found that only 74% of American adults believed in God. That's an 8% fall since 2009. And that's kind of interesting, because when you think about how polarized politics has become in this country with religion, it almost is like the people are kind of vomiting it up. It's kind of like it's having the opposite effect.
I think we're finally getting to where Europe has been for a long time. I mean, we were the only country that was the only industrialized country that was so religious compared to the rest of the world. So I think we're making some progress there. Although I think I see in Europe, seeing some religiosity coming back from a lot of the immigrants, especially from Islam. So we can't sit on our laurels. We're making some movement in the right direction. But I think the job is just beginning in this country.
Well, and I don't want to dismiss the word laurels, because you have a story involving something along those lines in a minute. But what is interesting in confirming what you're saying is that the Gallup poll survey basically has found that we are in the top 10 countries for a major decline in religion since 2005.
Well, we're starting from pretty high up.
Pretty high up.
So, yeah.
But it does go to show that despite all of the efforts of people like Joel Osteen and the religious right and the extreme right-wing religious politicians, that it's starting to really fall on deaf ears. And I think as people are getting more, it's like we're praying more and more, and we're getting laid off more and more. We're praying more and more, and our income is getting cut more and more. Something isn't working here. And I think that people are starting
the fact that Joel Osteen is able to get $600,000 in one Sunday, or a Saturday and a Sunday, it still speaks volumes to how religious we are here in this country still. So we still have ways to go.
Well, that's true, because as you're pointing out, 50% of the respondents basically said that religion is still very important. So we do have a lot of work to do. You're absolutely right. There's no question of that. Now on to your laurels story.
All right, so the next and last piece of news that we have is we're really talking about the Malaysia flight 370 that disappeared as of this morning, and what has been about 2 weeks or so. It hasn't been found. So would you be surprised to find out that there are some people coming out of the woodworks saying that that they have ways of finding this plane? So we have Abu Amas Madani linking the flight's disappearance to the airlines not following Sharia law, and saying that because the airline was not complying with Sharia law, it was serving alcohol, and the stewardesses were not covering up, that's why God just poof made this plane disappear. Then we have Tuam Ibrahim Tuan Man, vice president of the Islamist Party, PAS, that says that it is usual and normal for objects to disappear into Dijin, which is disappeared from out of the blue, into rendering them invisible both for human eyes and for instruments such as radars and things of the sort. So what he's saying is this is just a normal kind of thing. And then we have Bomo Ibrahim Matsin, who, well, before I mention about him, do you like coconuts?
Yeah, I like coconuts.
So I think you like this part of the story with the coconuts. So on last Wednesday, this fellow that I just mentioned, Ibrahim Matsin, was accompanied by several assistants to the Kuala Lumpur International Airport and told the reporters that he aimed to weaken the bad spirits so the rescuers can find the plane. And he used a fish hook and similar effects and a couple of coconuts and bamboo binoculars to locate the flight. And so now the word Bomo, which is some sort of shaman, it has now been tweeted 200,000 times. Did you see those coconuts?
Yeah, why don't you go back to that? Now, I just want the audience to think about, you have to have really big nuts to make a claim like that.
And he does have big nuts. Look at that.
I mean, that's just, now let's be clear, we're talking about coconuts.
Yeah.
You were not allowed to say derogatory things on air.
Well, you know, what's interesting is he put on a tie and a suit and everything to make
he's
sure
respectable.
that he's very respectable.
Dude, they even got name tags. Look at that.
Yes, well, they want to make sure they know who he is, you know, that they don't forget him. But no one, you know, some of these charlatans don't fail an opportunity like this to come out and really show up and say, hey, this is my magic, I'll sell it, come and guess what? There's one more person that I think you would like.
Oh, I think you're going to get into it, but I just want to say the whole thing about things coming in and out of existence, I know that to be true. I looked for my car keys for half an hour this morning before I could find them. They were absolutely not on that couch a half hour before. I know that that's true. But I hear spoons, on the other hand, tend to defy even that logic.
Oh yes, and you know who would know a lot about that and taking advantage of this opportunity about this airplane being missing is that and what really takes the cake here is that psychic, trickster, and liar, and all kinds of things. Uri Geller, best known for bending spoons. Who was also fully debunked live on TV by James Randi many years ago. Yeah, Geller revealed that he has been asked to find the missing Malaysia airline by a substantial figure in Malaysia. Of course, he won't say who it is, but he claims that he's doing remote viewing and that he's going to be able to find this plane. And guess what? I bet you when that plane is found, because it's an if, is when they find that plane, guess who's going to take credit for it?
Probably all of the people you just named, including
and then some.
Yeah.
And then some. They'll say, you see, I foretold this. I knew it was near water. It
was near water.
They're always so.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. That's brilliant. It's near water. I'm seeing the letter P.
Yeah.
It's like there's like fish. Does anybody here know anything about aquatics? It's just like it's like absolutely amazing. So he's that guy, and it just goes to show
Geller?
Geller.
Uri Geller, yeah.
These people don't change. No. They're static. Here he is again. Let's look at him 40 years ago. Oh my God! See how his powers have grown?
Well, his hair got shorter.
His hair got shorter.
So his powers must have grown, bending cutlery.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like, it's the same charlatan scam.
Is he bending a plastic spoon?
Yeah, I think
not a spoon,
he's got a fork and a knife in there, and he's got, oh my God, even got a plastic
this
comb.
guy, I would never invite this guy to my house.
Yeah.
My whole silverware will just turn into crap.
No joke, man. It's like, hey, I got a trick I want to show you. I'm like, no, I don't think so. Stay away from the silverware.
He's joining in. I wonder how many others are going to join in to say, this is where the plane was. I foretold it. And many will go after it's found. They'll go and post things afterwards in their websites claiming credit for it.
And he'll get recognition. People will pay him for his books. And
the news will give him coverage.
Believe the garbage. And you know what? Those people will still be dead. Nothing real will have been accomplished. The world will not be a better place despite Uri Geller and the Coconut Man's claims. In fact, I think Coconut Man and Ray Comfort need to get together and make the fruit salad that we all know that they're inevitably going to make.
What is this thing with fruits?
With fruits, I don't get it. But to wrap up our news, we're going to go to Liz Lydell with the Secular Student Alliance, and when we come back, we're going to introduce a wonderful guest who is going to be giving us some really great insight on how the atheist movement can grow. And until that moment, we let Liz take it away.
Welcome to Student News with the Secular Student Alliance. I'm Liz Liddell, the Director of Campus Organizing, and I'm here to share with you some of the most exciting events and news happening on high school and college campuses across the country. Students are a leading force for increasing diversity within the secular community. To support that drive, the National Secular Student Alliance has just launched a new series of resources for reaching out to groups that are traditionally underrepresented in the secular community. Resources include recommendations for working with Hispanics, former Muslims, women, political minorities, and others. And the program is planned to undergo ongoing development as we continue to identify and address the needs of this community. Students looking for summer internships have quite a few opportunities in front of them this year. 3 major organizations within the secular movement are now accepting applications for their summer interns. The Center for Inquiry, Secular Coalition for America, and Secular Student Alliance are all looking for current or recent students to take on exciting and interesting projects over this summer. Interested students can learn more about all available positions at secularstudents.org/jobs. This week, we're featuring the Secular Student Alliance at Arizona State University for their spring semester event series called Godless. Their events, happening nearly every week throughout the semester, include something for just about everyone. Panel discussions on morality, debates on religion, a speaker event with humanist Arizona State Representative Juan Mendez, and many more. The events have made the group one of the most well-known and active organizations on their campus, and has made them a model among Secular Student Alliance affiliates. Learn more about their programs at secularstudents.org/2014/ASU. You can always learn more about secular students and their work on our website. This has been Student News with the Secular Student Alliance. I'm Liz Liddell, and I'll see you next time.
Welcome back.
That was good.
It was excellent. Thank you, Liz. And you want to introduce our guest?
Yes, so I've met the person we're going to be talking about today, or talking with today, is Todd Stiefel. And I met Todd last year in person, and I was very impressed with him. He has a long history. He lives in Raleigh, North Carolina. Todd graduated cum laude from Duke University, so he's a smart cookie. And he worked for 12 years for Stiefel Laboratories, holding many positions in marketing, sales, but in my opinion, one of the most critical ones was operations and strategy, because that's really what we need here in the secular movement.
Absolutely.
During his tenure, the company's revenues quadrupled, so that's something to be said about him. And he was the Chief Strategy Officer, Enterprise Leadership Team Chairman, and member of the Executive Committee of the Board. And he was responsible for 250 people in finance, strategy, risk, facilities, administration, and management and different management functions. So, well, to say the least, he is president and founder of the Stiefel Freethought Foundation. And Todd, welcome to Road to Reason. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Cool. I was just going to say I could pray for a correction here, or I could actually ask Todd to slightly tilt his camera up so we get just a little more headroom.
So we don't give him a buzz.
Absolutely. There you go. Excellent. Thank you, Todd.
So before we go, I want to say something that Todd embodies the person that I fantasize about being. Someone that can do whatever he wants. But first of all, he's young and good looking. I fantasize about that.
I wasn't sure where you were going with the fantasy thing.
Second, he is, he is comfortably doing what he wants to do.
Yes. And
that is something that most people can't say, that they can do anything they want, or that they're doing exactly what they want and still be comfortable, in doing it. So that's why a lot of us will work for a long time and then retire and then do the things that we want to do. But by then we're typically old and feeble and senile like I am now.
Well, I'm kind of that way myself. That's good, Todd. Right where you got it's excellent. So, So basically, we had some questions for you, Todd, but I'd like to just kind of real quickly get from you what you're currently doing. What are you working on right at the moment?
I am working on essentially rebranding and relaunch of the Richard Dawkins Foundation's Out campaign. And I can't go into a lot of detail because we haven't gone public with the ins and outs of it, but I'll just say that it's going to be a pretty major effort, linking a lot of organizations in the movement, and we're putting a lot of time, money, and effort into it, and it's going to be awesome. I'm really, really excited about it.
Good.
Now, that's not the only place where you're doing a lot of work. I mean, the Secular Student Association gets a lot of input from you, I mean, you're very keen on keeping young people involved in this movement. Am I correct?
Oh, absolutely. The young people demographically are really where a lot of the growth is in terms of the nuns. Now, if you look across different age groups, all the groups are growing, but in terms of the young folks, that's really where the explosion of the non-religious is right now. And frankly, that's where I think we have a huge opportunity, because information is the enemy of religion and dogma. And right now, people have access to information like never before in world history. And for the young generations, they're used to having data that we have to go to encyclopedias and dig through and go get microfiche at the library. They, at the access of their fingertips, have the internet, and we all do as well. But the difference is they're growing up with this. Any question they have, anything that doesn't make sense, they can just go online. For all generations in the past, if something didn't make sense in the Bible, you could only ask your priest, and they would just give you some sort of evangelical answer, some apologist answer. Now you can go online and you can see what the truth really is, what the data really is, what the history is. And I think that's really changing the world very quickly right now. So that's part of the reason I think that the youth is so important, because this is a generation growing up with answers at their fingertips.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about, and you talked about how the youth is on the internet. One of the problems that the internet poses, at least as far as reaching people, is it tends to be very insular. People want to believe something, they only go to websites that kind of reinforce that, etc. What have you found has been a success or successful ways of getting to people outside of their comfort zone? Is there any type of marketing campaigns, any type of, I mean, the one advantage we have here at a public access show is that if somebody's flipping channels, regardless of their beliefs, they see the show, they can pay an interest. But most Christians don't go to atheist websites and vice versa. So what have you found that has led to some success in that area?
It's a good question. I can't think of something right off the top of my head that's been successful in getting people to overcome their confirmation biases online. But I think the reality is the internet and the cookies and the marketers out there are getting so smart at tracking and figuring out what you might like and what's related that they cross-promote. I mean, I get ads all the time for Christian dating services and the like. And I'm not a Christian, I'm not single, but they see my interest pattern is in things of a religious nature, so they start pinging me on that. I'd be willing to bet a lot of Christians out there are seeing things for atheism blogs or atheism YouTube channels just because they're cross-tagged. And so, I mean, I think that there's ways of people stumbling across this information, but of course, it's going to be very hard to get somebody who stumbles across it to not stop listening because, oh my gosh, this is challenging my worldview, and that makes me uncomfortable, and my cognitive dissonance is too high, I'm out.
I have a question. Last year, you gave a presentation at the SSA during the summer, and I wanted to ask you a couple of questions as a result of that. One is you were talking to leaders of groups, and you were asking them about Thomas Jefferson, and say, if you would your group today accept Thomas Jefferson, who was a deist, a believer, a free thinker, and also the second part to that question is, we've seen a growth of the nuns, which you mentioned in that talk also, and do you see that plateauing anytime soon, or do you think that's going to continue to go?
I personally think it's going to keep growing. I think we've seen some data that shows like a little blip down or a little stagnation, but then other data showing it growing. I think we're going to see it on a kind of steady rise with, you'll see a little bit of dips and flows, but I think the general trend is going to continue to go up. And I personally think 30, 50 years from now, we're going to have a very much secularized country. And I'm all in favor of it. But to your point about Thomas Jefferson, I think it's a really good question in terms of who we're targeting and who we want in our groups and how welcome we are to them. So I use Thomas Jefferson as an example because he's a religious skeptic. He was a free thinker in almost every way, yet he did believe in a creator God. Did he believe in an interventional God, a personal God? No, he did not. But he's a brilliant religious skeptic who personally cut apart the Bible to edit out all the supernaturalism. And is he somebody that would feel welcome in our local Freethought groups? Or would he feel alienated? Would he feel that there is too much anti-theism? Would he feel it's too angry? I think it depends on the group. And is that the type of person we want in our groups? Or do we want deists? Do we want people who might be spiritual but not religious? And my stance is that I think we do. I think that free thought is a road, and it's not something that is just, I'm a Christian and all of a sudden, boom, I'm an atheist. That might be true for some people, but for many people, it's a journey of skepticism and questioning. And maybe they go from conservative Christian to liberal Christian to agnostic to atheist to different paths to get there. But I think for a lot, nobody's a perfect skeptic, frankly. And everybody has their little
I guess
things.
You haven't met Paul. You haven't met Paul, the perfect skeptic.
He's the perfect skeptic. But I think we should welcome in people who are on that road and at different points in their skepticism and asking their doubts, and we should treat them with love and respect. And I think that's one great way to grow the movement.
I don't believe a thing you said.
Okay.
So I'm just.
Are you skeptical?
Yeah, I'm skeptical of everything. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think when you look at any major change in history, it's not one side overpowering another. It is basically coexisting and co-opting ideas and integrating into a society and a set of values. And I guess one of the questions that we're really aiming here to ask on this show is how to be more effective. We seem to be at a time and place in history where our voice is coming into its own, that we are not having to live of being, at least in this country at this moment, we're not having to live in fear of being burned at the stakes or chased down the street.
You may still lose your job in certain parts of the country.
That's correct. But that is something that is survivable. And there is a community that can come to your aid if that happens to you, and will speak up for you. And I guess the real question, Todd, is someone who has been as successful as you have in communicating the type of ideas that you do. One of the things David and I talked about is, what advice can you give people that are currently just blogging on the internet or doing whatever they're doing to become heard more, to get better exposure and to be more effective in communicating?
I mean, I think that advice would depend on the individual and how they're relating, but I think certain people do it really, really well. So for example, like a Hemant Mehta, I think does a fantastic job of reporting on what's going on, giving opinions, telling what's happening without kind of getting overly negative, without getting overly dramatic. I think one problem we frankly have as a movement, or maybe an area for opportunity, is that it seems like we have, and this isn't just us, this is kind of the internet in general, but there's almost like this sensationalism to some of the blogs where they jump on the bandwagon of criticism, or if somebody slips up, all of a sudden it becomes a slaughter fest for that person getting criticized across all different areas. And I think it's great for us to be skeptical. I think it's great for us to question people in the movement and to give good feedback. And if they mess up, yeah, that's fine. We need to be able to say that. But I think we sometimes get into a realm of almost kind of like the Geraldo Rivera of media, where some of the blogs get incredibly negative, incredibly personal and attacking, and really tear people to shreds in a personal way that is unnecessary and unproductive. I think we sometimes eat our own. And I don't think that's very helpful to us as a movement. People need to be given second chances. People need to be given the opportunity to mess up regularly. We're all human. And when they do that, they need to just get a nice kind of casual, not casual, but a nice, all right, you messed up and that's okay, but we appreciate the rest of your work. I see too often somebody mess up and all of a sudden they're horrible, they're terrible. Like poor, like for example, Richard Dawkins, for example, he's had some faux pas over the years, but man, when he makes a faux pas, people just jump on it.
Yeah.
They absolutely tear him apart. It's like, well, wait a minute, hold on. This guy has done so much for us, so much for the movement, done so many great things. You know, if he does 10 great things in a row and then messes up once, let's cut the guy a little slack. It's okay to call him out on the mistake, but it's not okay to kind of destroy the guy because that gets you more blog hits.
Right, and one person's mistake is another person's validation. You know, there are times people say things that are controversial, but that's one of the things I think that the internet itself tends to lend itself to is there is an autonomy. When you're sitting behind a computer and there's no consequences, you can leash whatever vicious, venomous thing you want to say against somebody, and there's like a sense of power that these people get from it, or hey, people are paying attention to me because I'm the center of attention now.
Well, the more noise they make, the more they feel that they create more news.
They're creating news, but they're not contributing in the same ways that a Richard Dawkins or someone of that.
Well, in that same vein, you did write in Meta's blog maybe a couple of years ago about the people that were doing a lot of providing a lot of criticism and not really being able to give a lot of it back, and so that we need to be more resilient in that area. Be able to.
You did your research. Good job.
Anyway, there's one part that I tried to find some research and didn't find, and that was with you on North Carolina. So North Carolina, that's where your home state, right?
Correct.
And it's not known as a bastion of civil liberties, from what I understand. No. What's your take on the state's future for same-sex marriage?
Oh, well, the legislatures are going to do everything they can to keep it from happening, but I think it's now inevitable that the courts are going to give equality and make things fair. And I am so looking forward to gleefully mocking the people who spent so much time and effort stripping other people of their rights only to have it backfire and to have them look like ignorant bigots. So, while our state is backwards in some ways, we have lots of great, brilliant people here. And I think that ultimately these things are going to be a dark day in the history of our state, but we will be fine in the long run if for no other reason than the U.S. Constitution has protections in place that ultimately will help these people. And while they might be stripped of their rights for several years, and that's terrible, I wish we had won earlier. I think we're going to win this battle soon. Excellent.
I'm going to take another shot here since I got him paying attention to me now.
By all means. All right. Because I'll just be skeptical of anything he says.
Well, I have a question. Considering my affiliation, I'm going to throw in my group here. Considering my affiliation with Hispanic American Freethinkers, and you attended my talk in San Diego some time ago, I never got together with you to get your take and see what you thought from a non-Latino perspective. What do you think, or in your opinion, are some of the things that we should be doing in trying to make sure that this high percentage of Americans, 16.5% of Americans, sort of follow the rest of America in becoming a secularized part of the nation?
I think I got that. You broke up a little bit with the internet, I guess, got attacked by a gremlin or something for the moment. But I think that as a movement, we need to do a lot more to reach out to a variety of minority groups. And I think that Hispanics are maybe aside from the nuns, the fastest growing group in the nation. And I think that your organization is critically important to that effort. I think that we need to do more in Spanish. I think we need to have more translations of our materials and books. I think that we need to have more Hispanic speakers at our conferences. I think that we need to engage that community in ways that we've made some efforts in the African American community, but I think we need to expand that as well. I think it would be great to have a Hispanic conference, and I look forward to the day where we don't need to have a Hispanic conference because the attendees from the Latin community are so high at our other meetings. But I think it's one of those things where, the Hispanic culture is predominantly Catholic from a religious perspective, and I think that there's an opportunity there because the Catholic Church has been shooting itself in the foot for a long time, but particularly over the last few years. And the Hispanic youth in this country see that, and I think many of them are disenchanted with what the Catholic Church is doing. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to kind of continue to educate, continue to provide resources, and continue to be skeptical of those kind of beliefs and provide them information that might help lead them down the road to reason themselves.
That would be nice. Todd, we're going to take a break here with some PSAs, and when we come back, one of the things I'd like to talk about is I think everything that I've read about you on the internet is that it's recognized that you're doing what you love for a living, and I'd like to see if you have any thoughts on how some people, again, that are like people on blogs, etc., can model some of your success. Like, what does it take to get funding? Are you able to somehow commercially connect? It's like, is it conceivable that atheists could have Coca-Cola endorse them, or something of that nature? But just take a moment and think about that. When we come back from the break, I'd just like to pick your brain a bit.
Sure.
To see what we can do to have people out there transition from this being a passion to a livelihood. And with that, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
This is Richard Dawkins. Doing commercials is unfamiliar territory for me, but I'm inviting you to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, on Fairfax Public Access every Sunday. Each week, the hosts tackle wishful thinking, religion, pseudoscience, and the harm they cause, with a combination of facts, humor, and community involvement. They challenge believers to defend their faith and give you, the skeptic, a voice. With live call-ins for viewers and streaming on the World Wide Web, there's never a dull moment. Don't wait. Look at them now on Facebook and YouTube, and remember to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, or there'll be hell to pay.
It's all worth it to get people to buckle up.
Hey, lacerated lovebirds, I sense a major crush.
You could learn a lot from a dummy. Buckle your safety belt.
Talk about head over heels.
Rosita, did you know there's a right way to sneeze? Let's show them, Elmo. Got it. When you feel like your nose needs to give it a chew, this is how you act. This is what you do. Lift your arm up high, bend it toward your face. Sneeze right there under bendy place. Achoo! You can do it with ease. Achoo! That's the right way to sneeze. Thank you.
To learn more about preventing flu, visit flu.gov.
7,000 high school students drop out every school day. That's a line of desks more than 4 miles long. We can keep students in school. Visit boostup.org and take the first step.
So, I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that. That's disgusting. Oh, poop already. You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
Welcome back to Road to Reason, the Skeptic's Guide to the 21st Century. I just mentioned before going to break about Todd talking about atheists having passions, skeptics having passions, and moving that to a living, helping, because when people are able to make a living doing what they love, the movement itself benefits from that. It grows.
You mean like pastors?
Like pastors. But I also want to admit that Todd does this as a passion. And Todd did make a sacrifice today to come on our show. I know he's missing his son's football game, and I just wanted to express my gratitude and
really appreciate it.
Appreciate that very much. And with that, I would like to maybe dive in a little bit about how atheists, can be more successful. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. I mean, I guess first, I personally am just kind of ridiculously fortunate to have been in a situation where I was able to succeed and be in a place where I could kind of volunteer my time to the movement. And, that's something that's hard to replicate. It was just kind of a lot of good fortune. But I would say for people out there who are passionate, who want to get engaged, the first thing is try to find a job that you love, whether it's in this movement or not. You might find a job that you love that's outside of the movement. You might find a job that pays very well, that you enjoy, that you can donate back to the movement. Now, if you want to work in the movement, that's something probably best for people in terms of giving advice to. It's probably better to give the advice to younger people who haven't kind of started down a career path or aren't too far. But look at the organizations that are out there and the kind of jobs they have, because there are jobs and there are openings, and sometimes we as a movement have trouble filling them. So, maybe you love communications, so go study, go get experience in PR or communications or media. Maybe it's in fundraising, so you can go learn development. You can get into all sorts of different sides of things, just management. We need more management experience in this movement. So perhaps getting an MBA or going in the business world and kind of trying to climb up the ladder there and then make the jump over to management in the nonprofit world. But there's a lot of career opportunities out there, and that will continue to grow over time. And there's not a huge number because our movement in terms of organizations is still relatively small, but if you go to some of these websites and look at who the staff are at like a CFI or an American Humanist Association, see what some of those jobs look like. And probably feel free to contact them and say, hey, I see that you have a person in this job. What is that role? And how is that something maybe I could learn to do over time? And I'm sure a lot of them would be willing to give you advice and help you out.
So sort of related to that, when it comes to fundraising, you saw us over here begging for money, and that goes for every nonprofit that we know of by definition. What type of advice would you give nonprofits, especially those nonprofits that are fairly young or just getting started in the secular movement, trying to get going? What are some of the what's some advice in fundraising and in affiliating with other groups to raise funds?
Well, I guess the first thing is make sure you get your 501c3 status.
Oh, that's assumed. That's assumed by definition.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think the real key to fundraising is asking. One of the best points of advice you can get in negotiating is you won't get what you don't ask for. So you gotta go out and ask, and you have to remember that oftentimes it's easy to become uncomfortable because you feel like you're asking for a favor or you're asking for something that they might not want to do. But the reality is if they're passionate about the cause and if they're interested in it, you're actually doing them the favor. And they probably want to give. And something I hear from development professionals is that they often hear, before they can say thank you as an organization, the donor usually says, thank you. Like, wow, I'm so excited. It feels really good to give this money and help you out. So I would say don't be afraid. Ask, and you will hear no's, and don't let that bother you. It's a game of averages. You got to step up to the plate and take a lot of swings if you're going to get a hit.
Now, you have done the 501c3, correct?
Correct.
I think that's scary to a lot of people that have never come into contact with that other than just the name. Is that a difficult process? Is that something that somebody's doing a blog that has a certain tang or style that can go out and get? I mean, what do people need to consider when they want to go after a nonprofit status?
I went through a different route than most groups do. I actually have a back office company called Foundation Source that does all my compliance and regulatory things. So they're the ones who did it for me. So for me, it was super easy. For other organizations, from what I've heard, it's not a very difficult process. I'm sure there's stuff you could find online on how to do it. The big thing is you might have to wait a few months, 6 months to a year even, to get that approval. Although from what I've heard, you can actually post that you have filed already and begin doing tax-deductible donations under the assumption you'll get that status.
Okay. I want to change the topic a little bit. you know, when you were instrumental in making history with the very successful Reason Rally in 2012. Every time I meet somebody, you know, in different parts of the country, the first thing they bring up is, oh yes, I went to the Reason Rally and so forth. Now, do you know when the next one is going to be, and are you playing a role in this, in the next one also? I mean, I know people are guessing at this point when this going to happen, and you know, trying to find out so they can make plans.
It's not something I'm at liberty to discuss yet.
Okay, that answers the question that you are involved in. Good. But it's happening then, at some point in the future, I guess.
I think it's likely to happen again.
Okay, well, that answers that question.
I promise if you tell us, you won't have to kill us. But that's...
But do I have to kill all of your listeners, too?
Well,
all 5 of them? Like, come on.
Okay, well, in that case, I'll change my question into something else that I know you will answer. I'm one of the founders of Camp Quest Chesapeake here in the Virginia, Northern Virginia area, DC area. And I know that you recently, or maybe not that recently, was it last year or the year before, that you were a Camp Quest counselor. And from what I heard from third parties, you seem to have had a good time over there. So my question for you is, you know, who do you think should volunteer for that? How can people help? And, you know, what was your experience?
So I've volunteered at Camp Quest, South Carolina and Ohio, one each year, brought my kids along with me. And yeah, it's a great experience. It's fun, it's exciting, it's a wild ride for sure. But I mean, I think people who are passionate about free thought and kids, it's a great place to go and volunteer and have a fun time getting to know some wonderful kids and getting to help them out and just have a fun time, educate them, and really help them on their search and their desire for answers, because it's one of those things where it's a great place to question. It's a place where we don't at Camp Quest give them the answers. It's not trying to teach them what to think. It's really a camp for teaching kids how to think and teaching them ways to be skeptical and ways to think through their own questions, their own doubts, and kind of form their own opinions, which is awesome. Plus, it's a place to just play sports and go swimming, go on hikes, and do all the great things you do at camp. So it's a really cool experience. I think a lot of kids will love it, and counselors certainly have a great time. But rest up before you go.
It's never too old. Never too old to do that, right?
Now, Todd, I have a question for you based on that. Do you all at this camp address mixed relations? You got a spouse who's religious, another spouse who's not, there's a child involved. Do they ever address that? Like, is that something that you ever cover?
No, I mean, it's certainly not something I've seen come up. We wouldn't bring it up on our own. If it came up as an issue, I think it would probably be addressed with that child individually and kind of quietly, just if that child had questions. But it's something that probably wouldn't come up to the whole group.
So there's no like workshop on, co-parenting or anything like that with differences of opinions?
Most of the workshops are, I mean, there's a lot of different ones, but there's a lot of science workshops and building bridges out of toothpicks and popsicle sticks. And there's what's called Socrates Cafe, where a moderator basically asks questions to the group, and the kids get to answer and think through these deep philosophical questions for themselves. So, but that's not specifically a topic that would.
Now, I'd read somewhere that your spouse is not atheist.
That's true. She's
a
Christian.
How do you decide how to raise your kids?
So we made a deal a long time ago. My wife Diana is a Christian, and we made a deal a long time ago to kind of each teach our perspective to the kids and let them decide for themselves. And so it's been a good thing. They've gotten to church at times. We've had some great experiences with that where they've learned a lot. We've had some tough experiences where we've thought, maybe this isn't the right place, where they've kind of come back with some more intense things that I would have liked my children hearing. But I'm all for the kids being exposed to different ideas. Dale McGowan talks about how you should inoculate your children with religion, that if they never hear about it, then it's something that can be much more appealing and they can be more susceptible to. So I'm all for my children learning about it. I've read the Bible to them, not cover to cover. I don't think they have that kind of patience, but I've read big chunks of it to them, and I think they think it's fascinating, and it's great to watch them be skeptical and ask questions like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. And I'm kind of like, well, I don't think that makes a lot of sense either, but you tell me what you think, and kind of explore those different options with them. So far, my son's probably pretty far down the atheist path, and my daughter is kind of down the I believe in God, but I don't know why, and I don't really care path.
It sounds like that's really the right way to do it. I've seen relationships literally be torn apart where couples are just, they won't be moved one way or the other, and the child becomes the battleground. And
well, you know, my wife was, I was the Christian and my wife was the atheist, and for 20 years or so, it worked out really well. It was kind of the same deal. She said, don't expect him to go to church, but you can take him to church all you want. And when my son turned 16, 17, he decided that, hey, you know, I think I'm an agnostic. Yeah. And he's always called himself an agnostic until now.
Well, that leads me to a question, Todd. We only have about 2 minutes, or about a minute left, actually, to 2 minutes. But you have been in the mix. You've been, you know, you're hanging out with the Dawkins Foundation. You've been speaking at a lot of events. You've had your hands in kind of everything. What do you think is the most important thing facing this movement right now in order to be successful and grow? Is it you know, aiming for young people? Is it, you know, where is it that you'd like to see the skeptic and atheist movement go in order to continue to be successful and relevant?
I think the most important thing is to continue to get people to come out and be out and live out. And it's continuing to live as people who are good, decent human beings doing charity work and helping out our neighbors, and just showing other people that we're humans just like anyone else. And I think it's really just taking a page from that LGBT playbook and humanizing ourselves and getting out there and making a difference in the world. And it kind of diversifying and broadening that base. So not just atheists. We need to bring in more agnostics. We need to bring in more deists. We need to bring in more religious skeptics of various stripes, because when you add all those people together who don't buy into either supernaturalism or organized religion, we're a huge cross-section of the population who need to work to earn, to gain respect of our peers. And once we have that, then we'll have that political ability to make a difference in the world and provide an appropriate and strong counter to the religious right.
That's excellent. And I want to thank you for being on today, Road to Reason, A Skeptic's Guide to the 21st Century. We would love to invite you in studio should you make your way down to DC.
Okay.
If you're ever down here doing an event, we'd love to come out and cover it. I think the work you're doing is excellent, and I know for a fact that I, for one, look forward to covering the great work that you do and your organization. And I want to thank you again.
Thanks so much for having me on the show. It's been great.
Thank you. And David, we're wrapping up our show. We should be heading off air here in a few minutes, but I want to make viewers aware they should check in our Facebook page for updates of the coming week's guests.
We need more likes.
Yeah, we want you guys not to get the word here on the show. We want you to get the word on the Facebook page so that you hit that like button. So make sure if you're watching, you visit Facebook. And until next week, this is Road to Reason, A Skeptic's Guide to the 21st Century.